Friendship is one of the most powerful bonds we can experience in life. It can lift us up, guide us through dark times, and help shape who we are. But what happens when that bond is broken? When the person you trusted the most, the one you considered family, turns against you? Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes, it comes from the people we would have done anything for. And when it does, it cuts deeper than any wound. This is the story of how I gave everything to support my best friend, only to watch him betray me in the worst possible way. It's a story of trust, ambition, and betrayal. And most importantly, it's a lesson. A lesson that not everyone you help will be grateful, and not every friend is truly your friend. Alex and I weren't just friends. We were like brothers. We met when we were kids, bonded over shared struggles, and promised each other that no matter what, we'd rise to success together. We had nothing growing up. Both of our families struggled financially, and opportunities were rare. But we had a dream. To make it big and prove to the world that we were more than just two kids from a poor neighborhood. That dream kept us going. We worked hard, studied harder, and supported each other through everything. When I got a good job after college, I thought I had one not just for myself, but for both of us. And when I got the chance to bring Alex into my company, I did everything in my power to make sure he got the job. At the time, it felt like I was securing both of our futures. I thought I was helping him the way he had helped me so many times in the past. But what I didn't know was that I wasn't pulling him up. I was handing him the knife he would eventually stab me with. This is the story of how I learned, in the most painful way possible, that not everyone you help will want to see you succeed. Some people, no matter how much you do for them, will only see you as a stepping stone. And the worst part? You never see it coming until it's too late. Growing up, Alex and I had nothing. Our families lived paycheck to paycheck, struggling to afford even the basics. While other kids were playing with the latest toys or going on vacations, we were figuring out how to make the best out of hand-me-downs and shared meals. But despite our hardships, we had each other. And that made all the difference. I first met Alex in 3rd grade when a group of kids tried to bully me for my worn-out sneakers. I was embarrassed, trying to shrink into myself, when Alex stepped in and told them off. From that day on, we were inseparable. We did everything together. Racing through the neighborhood on our beat-up bikes, sneaking into movie theaters, and making plans for our future. We dreamed of success, of escaping our circumstances, and of proving to the world that we were more than where we came from. High school was tough, but we had each other's backs. We both worked part-time jobs, saving up for college, determined not to let life's obstacles keep us down. Alex was always the more ambitious one. He wanted to be his own boss, start a business, and be rich. I, on the other hand, just wanted stability, a good job, a decent salary, and a life free from financial stress. When college came, we went to different schools, but our bond remained strong. We talked almost every day, sharing our struggles and victories. I landed an internship at a big company, while Alex bounced between jobs, trying to figure out his path. He had talent, but life wasn't giving him the same breaks. So, when I got my first real job after graduation, I made a promise to myself. I would help Alex, no matter what. He was my brother, and I couldn't let him struggle alone. When I finally got a high-paying job, I reached out to him and told him about an opening at my company. I vouched for him, pulled every string I could, and made sure he got hired. At first, everything seemed perfect. We were working together, just like we had dreamed. I thought we had made it. But then, little things started to change. Subtle at first, almost unnoticeable. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. But I didn't. And that was my biggest mistake. It started small, so small that I didn't even question it at first. Alex was always the charming, confident one. He could walk into a room and instantly command attention. At work, he was the same way. People liked him, and he quickly built a good reputation. I was happy for him. After all, I had helped him get there. But then, I started noticing something strange. Whenever I talked about work, about my achievements, my ideas, he would change the subject. If I got a compliment from our boss, he would find a way to downplay it. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, something happened that made me realize things weren't as they seemed. One day, we were in a meeting, and I presented an idea I had been working on for weeks. It was solid, something that could help the company improve efficiency. Everyone seemed impressed. Then, 2 days later, Alex presented the same idea, word for word, as if it was his own. I was stunned. I sat there in silence as the managers praised him, completely unaware that I had come up with it first. I wanted to say something, to call him out, but I hesitated. He was my best friend. Maybe it was just a mistake. So I let it go. That was my second mistake. Because after that, it only got worse. I started noticing that he was taking credit for more of my work. He was getting closer to the higher-ups, making connections, and positioning himself as the star employee. And me? I was fading into the background. Still, I told myself it wasn't a big deal. After all, we were in this together, right? His success was my success. Or so I thought. Then, one day, he said something that made my blood run cold. I overheard him talking to a coworker about success. And then, he laughed and said, "There's no place for losers in this company." I froze. Losers? Was that how he saw me now? The person who had given him everything? I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I knew. This was just the beginning. After that day, something inside me shifted. I tried to brush off Alex's words, but they echoed in my mind like a warning bell I had ignored for too long. I started paying closer attention to his behavior, and the more I observed, the more I realized just how far he had gone. He wasn't just taking credit for my ideas anymore. He was actively working against me. At first, it was subtle. He would forget to pass on important information to me. If there was a meeting, he'd conveniently leave me out of the email chain. If our boss asked for my input, Alex would interrupt and answer before I had the chance. But then, things escalated. One morning, I walked into the office to find my boss waiting for me. His expression was unreadable, but his words hit me like a brick. "I heard you've been making careless mistakes lately," he said. My heart dropped. What was he talking about? I hadn't made any mistakes. "Alex mentioned a few concerns about your work. Nothing major, but I wanted to check in." "Alex." I forced myself to stay calm. My boss wasn't accusing me. He was giving me a chance to explain. But that wasn't the point, was it? Alex had planted the seed of doubt. And once that seed was there, it would grow. I tried to tell myself that maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Alex didn't mean any harm. But then, I started hearing the whispers. Coworkers who used to greet me warmly were now hesitant, their smiles forced. Conversations would go silent the moment I walked into a room. And then, the final blow came. I was called into another meeting, this time, with HR. Apparently, someone had reported that I was difficult to work with, that I wasn't a team player. I knew exactly who was behind it. Alex. The person I had helped, the one I had fought for, was now fighting to push me out. And worst of all, it was working. My reputation was in shambles, and I could feel the walls closing in. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Because now, I saw Alex for who he truly was. And I was done playing nice. I sat in that HR meeting, my pulse hammering in my ears. The accusations against me felt surreal, like I was watching a movie where I was the villain. But I had no idea how I ended up cast in the role. I kept my expression neutral, listening as the HR manager read off vague complaints, that I wasn't cooperative, that I had an attitude, that I was difficult to work with. It was all nonsense. And worse, I knew exactly who had fed them these lies. Alex. The same Alex I had supported for years. The same Alex who had struggled, who I had lifted up, who I had defended when no one else would. And now? He was repaying me by systematically tearing me down. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "I'd like to know who filed these complaints." The HR manager hesitated. "I'm afraid I can't disclose that information." Of course, but I didn't need a name. I already knew. I wasn't going to sit there and let Alex win. "I'd like to see specific examples," I said firmly. "Dates, incidents, anything beyond vague character judgments." The HR manager glanced at the papers in front of her. "Well, we don't have exact dates, but—" "Then what are we discussing?" I interrupted, keeping my tone controlled but firm. "Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like an attempt to discredit me without any actual evidence." That seemed to throw her off balance. She fidgeted with the papers and cleared her throat. "This isn't a disciplinary action," she said. "Just a conversation." A conversation. That's how it starts, though, isn't it? First, a conversation. Then, more rumors. More whispers. And before you know it, you're out of a job, reputation in ruins, while the person pulling the strings walks away unscathed. I wasn't going to let that happen. "I appreciate the feedback," I said, standing up. "If there's a real issue with my performance, I'd be happy to discuss it, with facts, not hearsay. Otherwise, I have work to do." I walked out before she could say another word. But I knew this wasn't over. Alex had made his move, and now it was my turn. I wasn't the type to seek out confrontation, but this time, I had no choice. Alex had made it clear. He wasn't just trying to get ahead. He was trying to get rid of me. I wasn't about to let that happen. That afternoon, I waited until I saw him step away from his desk. He was heading to the break room, casually sipping his overpriced coffee, acting as if he hadn't just tried to destroy my career. I followed him in, shutting the door behind me. He turned, startled, but quickly masked it with his usual smug grin. "Hey, what's up?" I folded my arms. "Cut the act, Alex. I know it was you." His grin wavered. "What are you talking about?" I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "The complaints. The rumors. The HR meeting. You've been feeding them lies about me." He scoffed, shaking his head. "Wow. Paranoid much? I don't know what you—" "Save it." I cut him off, my tone sharp. "I've spent years supporting you, helping you, and this is how you repay me?" Alex exhaled through his nose, setting his coffee down on the counter. "Look, it's nothing personal, all right?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Nothing personal? You tried to ruin my career, Alex. That sounds pretty personal to me." He shrugged. "This is how the game works. It's survival of the fittest." I felt my stomach twist. He really believed that. "You think stepping on people is the only way to succeed?" I asked. He smirked. "I think you were in my way." There it was. The truth. I stared at him for a long moment, letting his words settle. I had fought for this guy, defended him, lifted him up when no one else would. And the second he had the chance, he threw me under the bus. I wasn't just angry. I was done. "You want me out of the way?" I said quietly. "Fine. Watch me walk away." His smirk faded. "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned on my heel and walked out. He thought he had one. He had no idea what was coming next. Walking away from Alex felt like slamming a door shut on years of loyalty, sacrifice, and blind faith. But I wasn't just walking away from him. I was walking towards something better. I had a plan. If Alex wanted to play dirty, I wasn't going to sink to his level. But I wasn't about to let him win either. I spent the next few days gathering evidence, piecing together everything he had done. Emails, messages, backhanded comments he had made to coworkers. It all painted a clear picture. Alex wasn't just undermining me. He was sabotaging the entire team. The breaking point came in the form of an email, a message he accidentally sent to me instead of one of his buddies. In it, he bragged about how he had finally gotten rid of the dead weight and how the higher-ups were eating out of his hand. Dead weight. That's what I was to him. After all the late nights I had covered for him, the times I had fixed his mistakes, the moments I had pushed for his success, he had reduced me to dead weight. I clenched my jaw, taking a deep breath. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was time to show everyone exactly who Alex was. The next morning, I walked into HR's office, not as a victim, but as someone ready to fight back. I laid everything out. The proof of his lies, the complaints that didn't add up, the manipulation, the email. I watched the HR manager's face change as she read through it all. "This is serious," she muttered. "Yes," I said. "And it's been going on for too long." A meeting was called. Not for me. For Alex. When he was summoned to HR, I saw the way his face paled. He knew. He knew. For the first time, he wasn't the one pulling the strings. That afternoon, rumors started swirling around the office. Alex had been put on probation. Some whispered about a demotion. Others speculated that he was on his way out. And me? I got an email from my manager. "Let's talk about your future here," I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Alex had tried to destroy me. Instead, he had set me free. The day after Alex's HR meeting, the atmosphere in the office shifted. People who used to hang around him suddenly kept their distance. Conversations paused when he walked by. His usual arrogant strut had turned into something more cautious, almost nervous. I wasn't surprised. Word had spread fast. I wasn't the only one Alex had manipulated. He had built his career by stepping on others. But now, the cracks in his foundation were fully exposed. For the first time in years, I felt light. I walked into my manager's office, unsure of what to expect. She gestured for me to sit. "I've been reviewing your work, and I have to say, I'm impressed." I blinked. "Thank you." She nodded, clicking her pen. "It seems you've been doing a lot more than what's listed in your job description. Covering for mistakes that weren't yours. Taking on extra work. Frankly, we should have recognized that sooner." I waited, my heart pounding. She leaned forward. "How would you feel about a promotion?" I almost laughed. Alex had spent so much energy trying to bury me, and in the end, his sabotage had done the exact opposite. I had one. I accepted the promotion, my chest swelling with pride. Later that day, I passed Alex in the hallway. He was hunched over his desk, his usual confidence stripped away. When he noticed me, his face twisted into something between anger and disbelief. "You think you won?" he hissed as I walked by. I stopped, meeting his glare. "No, Alex. I just stopped losing." He didn't have a comeback, because deep down, he knew. He had done this to himself. A week later, Alex was gone. Officially, he had resigned. But everyone knew the truth. His lies had caught up to him. As I settled into my new role, I realized something. I wasn't just moving up in my career. I was finally free of the toxic loyalty that had held me back for so long. Alex had taught me a painful lesson, but in the end, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.